Welcome. We have a very packed house today, another exciting show. There is so much to talk about. We have the NFL Combine, Derek Carr, Tony Pollard, other things. So much news in the NFL. And we have a great crew. So, Conan, are you excited to be here?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of stuff that just happened this weekend. I don't know how much stock you guys put into, a lot of the measurables, just seeing some of the guys do their stuff without the equipment, but excited to talk about it all.
Yeah, so Jeremy, welcome back. It's been a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, just over there grinding out the rookie content, stuff like that for Dynasty, for FTN Fantasy. Other than that, just living life, trying to, get by day by day.
We have breaking news, by the way, but we'll get to that in a second. All right, Josh, what's up? It's been a while since you've been on here.
I know. Sorry, man. I mean, I feel like there's always something coming up with the family, but whenever I have a free Monday, I love to hop on. Thank you for having me on. Excited about all the football news. It's kind of crazy though that we have so much. We have to wait till the next season starts. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. For the draft. For all the free agency things to happen. It's going to be pretty exciting this off season.
And Dave, it's been like a month. How have you been?
Busy. I got to do the media stuff at the Combine.
That's so cool, man.
Awesome experience. I got about 150 videos I got to edit and figure out how to post them. First time doing that kind of stuff, but it was really cool to be able to meet and interact with the players.
What was it? Yeah, tell me more about that. What was it like to be at the Combine?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the Combine before, but never in the media capacity, so I really didn't know what to expect. I got there early. I'm at the Bryce Young podium. And the next thing you know, there's like all these national media and everything behind me. And I'm just sitting there, with my phone, so it's a little intimidating. And then you realize quickly, like there's 9 podiums and it's like speed dating and everyone's going to be gone in 20 minutes. So I'm like, get a couple clips of Bryce Young, get out of there. And then I went to some of the smaller tables with some of the guys like Justin Shorter is sitting there and he's getting all the questions about Anthony Richardson, nothing about him. So I'm like, all right, let me ask him some questions about him. And I got a little more confident and got to go. And then for the Saturday, it was actually like linemen and running backs, and like all of the radio row was gone. Nobody cared about O linemen, and so like I
feel bad for them. But the old saying about offensive linemen: we only care about them when they're playing badly.
Yeah,
nobody notices them when they play well.
It's exactly what it was like, man. It was a ghost town. It was just me and like the TV crew, like. Not like the guys on set. It was the guys setting up the set and me. They probably thought I worked there. But I got to have one-on-one interactions. Like, wow. I'm literally like, I think like this guy's by himself. Like, it's probably a no-name guy. I'm going to go over there. Zach Evans just sitting by himself. And I'm like, cool. Like, yeah, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And so it's just really cool. Bijan Robinson was like running around. I got to just like almost ran into Darnell Washington because he's so freaking big and I'm short. So I just like almost ran into him. So it was awesome.
I love that. I want to go one day, to the Combine. I do really want to go one day. That's sweet. Caleb, I really appreciate this. I do agree that I'm the best. I appreciate that. And I totally agree with you. Obviously. But it's a good segue to talk about Derek Carr, who just signed his contract today. It was one of the agenda things on my show sheet. So we can talk about that. Let's see. And thanks again for this very large super chat. It's the first super chat I think in a long time. So I really appreciate you.
I thought you were saying the GOAT was the segue to Derek Carr. So I was
I'll be the segue to Derek Carr's brother if we're talking about the GOAT isn't bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the premise of the question is not ideal because I don't think there is an RB2 or 3 that's worth enough. Like, they're all worth less. They're all worth less than Derek Carr.
Mhm.
I don't think we're going to be trading Derek Carr for a running back 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So for me, that's not going to work. Yeah, I just don't see myself doing that. I don't know.
Let's take the question as like 2 separate questions then, like completely separate, irrelevant from each other. So like what I think, I mean, just in case that's kind of how I read it initially, like they're kind of squeezing 2 questions in. So
Yeah, I mean, no, I definitely would say that Derek Carr, I actually didn't move him in my rankings. This is not where I wanted him to go. It's not where I wanted him to go. I want him to go to the Jets. The Jets had a better team. The Saints kind of, I don't know. But I didn't move him. So he's still worth between the 109 and the 110 of value to me. That helps you. I mean, that answers the question. That's the question answered. If you're looking to move off Carr, I mean, I would look. The first thing I would probably try, because I don't know if you'll actually, people always see if there's someone in your league who doesn't like future picks. And I would try to get a 2024 first. That's probably the first thing I would do if I'm looking to move off Derek Carr. But I probably wouldn't take much less than that, honestly. I'm fine holding him. The contract, the way it's structured, 4 years, 150 million, 60 million fully guaranteed, 10 million vests after year 1 for year 3. What that means essentially is that it's a 2-year deal.
Yep.
Where year 3 is like they're half committed to year 3, and year 4 they're not committed to it all. That's what it means. Is it they're stuck with 2 years. Year 3 they can get out of, but it would be expensive, and year 4 is probably almost nothing. So keep that in mind when you're looking at Derek Carr's contract. But he will be the quarterback for the next 2 years at a minimum, which is worth a late first or a 2024 first.
Yeah.
I mean, does anyone have anything to add? I don't think there's much to add. I feel like most of the discussion about Derek Carr going to New Orleans is less about Derek Carr. It's more about Chris Olave and also that Derek Carr didn't go to the Jets.
I mean, I would just say that in a Superflex league, I think obtaining like a starting quarterback in a Superflex league, it's a lot harder than drafting one right during the startup. Because I'm with you. I think that there's enough value knowing that he's going to be starting for at least a couple of seasons going forward, where I would not part with him for anything less than a first or first plus. And so this is still Derek Carr, but I think that's what you're going to try to command in terms of value. If you're trying to buy, obviously try something like a second. And
I think you had your chance, though. Like if you wanted to buy, I do happen to know that he's trying to sell. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he has Derek Carr trying to sell.
Yeah, I would just hold then, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to sell, you're going to have an easier time selling now than when he was a free agent. So it's going to be easier to sell him now because there's some certainty. So I would agree that if you're trying to sell, this is not a bad time to do it. I want more than an RB2 or RB3. I mean, what does that even mean? Like an RB2 is what? I mean, I do know that the player he was talking about was DeAndre Swift, and I can tell you that I would much rather have Derek Carr. I don't want DeAndre Swift. I don't want DeAndre, timeshare. I'm good. That's a good no. It's a good nickname. DeAndre timeshare. I like that one. But yeah, is there anything to add? I think Derek Carr is kind of underrated. That's also the other thing is he's not really a sell to me.
Well, if you do sell him for those draft picks, I feel like you can get a decent RB2 in that range as far as the rookies. I mean, there's going to be 4 quarterbacks drafted in the first 5 or 6 picks of your Superflex drafts. And if this is a Superflex league, those 109 or 110 could be one of the top running backs. There's a lot of running backs. The Saints are a team. I asked every running back if you met with any teams, and almost every single one of them has met with the New Orleans Saints, and a lot of those were formal interviews. Mm-hmm. And the Saints are also bracing themselves for a possible Kamara suspension.
The Saints are going to take a running back. It's not an if, but it's a when.
But I don't think it's a terrible spot. I didn't love the Jets for Carr. Not only it's a tough division. Carr doesn't play well outdoors. I mean, we'll see what happens with the offensive coordinator change there. But he's got some decent weapons. They have, finally got some draft picks there for the Saints. I don't think his value changes much at all.
Yeah.
But it's in domes in a very crappy division that 8 and 9 won the division last year.
I still think the Bucks would have been better. Although maybe
Godwin,
not
Evans.
after what the Bucks are doing to their team.
Oh, they're throwing everything. I mean, they're just revamping everything, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. I would say, just see what you can get. 2024 first would probably be the thing I look for the most.
I mean, if Michael Thomas can be healthy, MT and Olave is not too bad.
Michael Thomas is.
Sprinkle in a little Juwan Johnson if they bring him back. You got yourself some weapons.
Well, Juwan Johnson is coming back.
Oh, is he back for sure?
Well, I mean, he's a restricted free agent. Restricted free agents never walk.
That's true.
I mean, you saw what the Browns did with Dearness Johnson. He was a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
They brought him back and never used him. So
that's so sad.
Restricted free agents don't walk.
No.
There's one I can think of who might walk this year, and that's James Robinson, because I don't think the Jets are going to put any tender on James Robinson, considering he didn't even play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we covered this. And we're going to have a lot more to talk about with Derek Carr as the show goes on, I think, specifically as it relates to, moves that might come after that, Michael Thomas and other things. Okay, so this question came in first. I honestly, I think we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I think I want to mostly just kind of address this question very quickly. I would say expanding, there's no right way. I would just say don't and just leave it there. I don't think you can really expand a dynasty team, a dynasty league. It's actually easier to contract it. That's actually easier. Because then you just split up the assets. You have a dispersal draft with those assets, and you favor the teams that did worse the year before, and you just split up the assets. You have some way of doing it. That's actually easier if you want to contract from 14 to 12. But I don't like this. I think it's just easier to start a new league. I don't think this is really something. This is not something I recommend.
Yeah.
And not something I would ever participate in or approve of. So my answer to this, similar from going to Superflex, one QB to Superflex within a league, is usually just no. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to spend more time on this question. I want to talk more about the combine and players and stuff like that.
That's fair.
Yeah. Because that's always my answer to that question. Interesting. From Jesse. And I do have a lot of notes about the combine and a lot of stuff I want to get to. But let's talk about this one. I know which side Tyler would be on here, but curious on everyone else. I give Lance for Pickett, 112 and 210. Oh, you do know what side I would be on, I suppose. I'd rather have the package, obviously, if anyone doesn't know.
To be honest, I'd take the package too. I think Trey Lance is in some dangerous waters at the moment. You have those talks that everybody wants Brock Purdy to be the starter there. I don't know where San Francisco stands. Lance hasn't really been able to get on the field, whether that's injuries or not. But Lance was always a question mark coming out. He's got that rushing floor that you're looking for as a fantasy asset, but 112 and even 210 this year is pretty nice, especially because it's a super flex league. And you're getting Kenny Pickett back, which he had an all right rookie season. I don't think he's going to blow our doors off as a solid fantasy asset, but he's a solid QB2, QB3 in your rotation, depending on who you have. And depending on your league, 112 could end up even potentially being a quarterback. It depends on how they all go. I highly doubt that, but there's that.
I see that as
it's more
zero?
Probably a wide receiver at 12.
Yeah,
but
I see
there's
112
that
being a
chance.
quarterback,
You've seen it.
basically being a 0% chance. That's not with the way this class is working out. I don't see
I
that.
could see if one of them falls. If Levis really falls, I could see him falling.
Well, I just don't think that's.
Drafts.
The NFL evaluators. A lot of people can talk about it with the combine. I don't think Will Levis was particularly impressive, but they seem to think. The media seemed to think that Will Levis had a good combine. I don't know how I feel.
They really
but that's what they said. They said it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the general narrative after the combine, which I agree with, is that all 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And if that's the case, then no matter what you think of them, no quarterback drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft is going to go at 112 in the Superflex. That is not going to happen. So I don't think there will be.
Zach Wilson got close.
Did
He was like 1.8, 110.
Yeah, but it was still really a tier of 10 that year with Wilson being a part of it. So 112 is pushing it, and that was a better class, I think, honestly, than this one at this stage.
I don't even like Pickett very much long term, but I would still take it. I would still take the package side because Pickett at least for sure has the starting gig, in Pittsburgh, and you have 2 draft picks that you can hit on. Versus Lance, you're just trying to hit on him, and we're not really sure if that's going to happen or come to fruition. So I also lean towards the package here.
The scary thing about Trey Lance is that if some guy we'd never heard of a year ago didn't have a freak injury in a playoff game, Trey Lance doesn't have any value. Like if Brock Purdy ends the game healthy, even if they lose, I don't think we're talking about who's going to start. I think it's Brock Purdy is starting and Trey Lance is the backup or being traded away. I don't think there's a discussion. I don't think there ever was. I think it's only the injury that now there's a discussion. But I don't think there was a discussion. I said we were past that point after the first playoff game. And then especially after the second playoff game, that point was over. And now the injury has brought the point back up. But that's genuinely terrifying that someone who had so much value is now depending so much on an injury to a nobody. That's not good. That means that person is no longer, in Trey Lance's case, a premium dynasty asset anymore. Because premium dynasty assets are not affected by what happens to nobodies. So, that's my take on Trey Lance. Not a player I want. Let's see. Oh, okay. So good. This is good from Drew. And if you want, ask questions in the live chat. Today, I will say we have plenty to talk about. So it's not necessary, but I always want to talk about what the people want to talk about. We'll just go through the players from the combine. I honestly think there's more to talk about than time we're going to have. But if there's specific players you want us to go over from the combine, specific questions about anything like that, ask it in the chat because I always prefer to go to questions from the chat. From Drew, would you do Komet and 107 for Olave? And this is easy, right? I mean, yes, I would rather have Olave, especially now. Yeah.
If you're buying Olave for that, go for it.
This is a smash accept, right? I don't have any doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think I'd rather have Olave over any, in a super flex, any non-quarterback other than Bijan. So pretty easily. I mean, what more? I'm going to take someone blind, like a wide receiver blind coming into the NFL over a first rounder who was really good as rookie? Probably not. So
yeah, I always go for the guy who's been able to produce at the NFL level if possible.
Especially when they come with draft capital. We're a pretty good prospect to begin with as well.
Yeah. And Carr helps, right? I mean, I think
a lot. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's not that Carr's great. It's that some of the options for New Orleans were really bad, and he's avoided that low end range of outcomes. Like Carr was the best case scenario that he could have had.
I thought Winston would get a shot, but I guess not.
No. They were done with Winston a long time ago. Carr was the best case scenario that he could have had.
Yeah, Carr just gives you a lateral. I don't think Carr's that much better than Andy Dalton, personally.
Oh,
I think Carr's a mid-level quarterback who's good. I mean, he's not terrible by any means. He's a good asset, but I don't think it's as good as everybody's making it out for Olave. I mean, we've seen Carr. He doesn't stretch the field as much, and maybe that's the Raiders. Maybe that was their play calling. But we even saw it with Henry Ruggs. They weren't able to take care and blow the tops off of teams with Ruggs with Carr at quarterback. So I don't think that now Olave runs a little bit better of a route tree than Ruggs did.
A little.
So he's going to get used in different ways. But
he runs routes.
I think
Ruggs
Olave
didn't do that. The only route Ruggs ran was going to jail. It's the only route he ran successfully.
I just think that Olave's at this point, this is a good price for Olave because I think that people are going to put him through the roof thinking that Carr is going to take him to this next level. And I think he's just going to be a wide receiver too, mid-level. I mean, it's good. It's not bad. I don't think there's going to be this high-end upside that everybody's going to want out of Olave just because of the offense. And I do think that at 30, they're going to take a running back, and it's probably going to be somebody like Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's going to take a lot of that away from Olave a little bit. I just think that they're going to add a lot of assets to the offense with where their picks sit this year and with how deep the offensive side class is. That I think Olave is going to be good. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I just don't think that he's going to be this high-end asset just because they got Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is a slightly above move from Andy Dalton personally.
I think he's way better than Andy Dalton, especially 2022 Andy Dalton. Maybe 2015 Andy Dalton is another thing. But 2022 Andy Dalton was washed, terrible. I mean, you saw him on the Cowboys a couple of years ago. He's terrible. And then last year was even worse. I think it's much better. The history of players who go in the first round and then have the type of season. I mean, he had over 1,000 receiving yards in 15 games. Mm-hmm. The history of players who have that type of profile is superstar. Those players are usually superstars. So I'm going to trust, since I am not, scout expertise, and we see how the expert scouts really do. It's not so good. I'm going to trust that essentially every player with that profile ends up being a star. So why should he not be a star? There's nothing about his profile that says no. So, he did produce, has the draft capital, look good on the field. Quarterback is better than last year. There's no reason why he shouldn't be a star. So if I'm giving up this, is 107 is a maybe. Definitely a maybe, right? I mean, we don't know that the 107 is going to be great. Of course, I always recommend acquiring rookie picks. I mean, we know I'm usually on the side of rookie picks, but generally players who have Chris Olave's profile so far between college, draft capital, and the NFL, those players are almost always stars. So,
well, and Olave also, he's 22 right now, so it's pretty much
23 in June,
like age value, right?
Yeah, 23 in June. So he'll be a little bit older than some of the prospects in this class, but we're not talking old.
I love how
23 is young.
Know you and those birthdays. That's so funny how you know.
This one, I will say, this one I had Chris Olave stats in front of me, so
okay.
Birthday was right above it. Sometimes I do know it, but
yeah, I know.
This one did not have that one memorized. Okay, good question from Flosaurus. Are you guys buying Wandale for a 24 second? In a 12-team Superflex, a 1 PPR start 10, he'd be my wide receiver 5. That doesn't matter. Are you buying him for a 24 second?
Nah.
I'm saying no as well with Josh.
I don't want him that badly.
Me neither. If it's close on a deal like this, it's never the player for me. Never. I have to be. If it's close, I'm always going to take the liquid asset. Yeah. So this is debatable. So since it's debatable, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I take a third. I do a third, maybe maybe a third and a future third. But he was a late second round pick last year, and then he has a torn ACL. He's not done anything to increase his value or hold value. So for me, he is someone you can target, but it's more wait till the Giants sign a receiver, his value gets depressed, and then go get him for a third if you're interested, and do whatever you can to get rid of KJ, because KJ was never a good asset. So
Dave, fellow Giants fan, what would you like to see the Giants do in this offseason at wide receiver? It's not really related to the question too much, but I'm just curious. You're here, so let's.
I did get to talk to some of the Giants reporters, and they were like,
"How wonderful!"
We don't want another shrimp, and so Josh Downs is a guy where like he's a small dude. Like some of these guys like Tank Dell, like those kind of guys we're not interested in. Obviously you want a good receiver, and so like Zay Flowers in the first round, if we could get and Jordan Addison's size, he's one that's. The size was definitely a concern, but I'm not as concerned. If we could get Addison or JSN in the first round, something like that. I don't think we have to go get Quentin Johnston just to say we got a big guy. But I think we probably got to get 2. We got to get 1 early and 1 late. And I think there's plenty of guys. I'd love to get Cedric Tillman and day 2. He's a possession receiver, physical guy after the catch, chain mover, Xavier Hutchinson, something like that to pair up with Wandale and Isaiah Hodgins.
I mean, Sterling's coming back too, right? I mean,
cut him.
No, he's not.
No, the Giants voided his contract, and also he is
Sterling. I didn't know that.
He is so
one of my faves when he was healthy.
Yeah, him and
great person. Injuries took him out.
It's good not to get too many shrimps on your team though, because I hear they're shellfish players.
Well played.
God. I'm gonna store that one in the back of my mind. I'm using that later. Real
Straight
quick question
face.
for Giants fans: you guys want them to trade up? You want to go get a
No.
quarterback?
No.
Let
No.
Jones walks, or are you gonna pay Jones $45 million?
He's going to cost less than that.
Only
Yeah.
maybe 5 million less though, right? I mean, did they say
Like
that they're
40. It's
looking
gonna
at
be.
40
I think
mil?
the car contract is a little bit of setting the stage. I think maybe a little bit more than what Carr got.
Curious. I think they could trade up.
Please throw the farm at the Bears. That'll be great.
I really think
Yeah.
just with Daboll's history, the Bills did it to go up and get Josh Allen. If they fall in love with one of these guys, I could see it.
If somebody
some
falls
moves.
to like the 10
There's
to
enough-
15 range,
Yeah, there's enough
more than
assets
that
they can
price.
move somebody. You know what I mean? You can move one of the 5 really good defensive linemen you got on top of that with
Hey,
your
throw
pick,
Barkley in
move
there,
up.
man. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I think we're
they can-
I think we're well past that point, though. I think the quarterbacks are moving up in value, not down, which takes them way out of the Giants' range.
Yeah, to move
unfortunately.
up from 25 for a quarterback is going to cost like everything, and we can't do that.
Yeah, the Giants have too many holes. They're not one quarterback away.
Yeah, but the Bills did it. It's not
They went
that
up to
bad.
10 though. They went up to 10.
Yeah. I think they'll be those.
If
there's
they
gonna be
like
some
somebody
great
at 10, like Levis or Richardson at 10, then maybe. But moving up top 5,
They won't be there at 10. They won't.
It sounds
be there.
like they're all going to go top 5 because of the Colts.
I don't
and the
know if they're all
Texans.
going to go top 5, but I will say that I'm pretty sure Chicago's going to trade out of 1. Houston's going to pick another one at 2, and
Carolina's at
then
9 is the stopgap.
yeah, I agree with that. I think Carolina at 9 is going to be the 4th one.
This is
At
the
the
year
latest.
that the Bears reverse the trade up from Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I
Like,
do think the
undo
Bears
that
are going to
in-
complete. I do think the Bears are going to complete that trade soon.
I hope.
Like
so.
I think it's going to be done soon. I expect it to be the Colts, but there are other teams. We know that the Raiders are interested. We know that Atlanta and Carolina are also interested. So we'll have to see. But I think that trade will be done soon. Thoughts on Evan Hull? Yeah. So Evan Hull was a little low in my rankings for me to really bother writing up notes about him. Should I have?
Yeah, I mean, Evan Hall is pretty good running back. I mean, he's out of Northwestern like Grimley has on here. I mean, the profile isn't super great, but you watch the tape. I mean, he's got some pretty good juice to him. The 4.47 was a little surprising. It's a little faster than I thought he was going to run. But he's a guy that kind of checks a lot of boxes when you're looking at it from like an analytical standpoint and like the numbers that they want to see. I mean, he gave it to him. It was just he's kind of in Northwestern and kind of pigeonholed as far as production goes. I think the draft's going to say a lot. If he's taken in the first 3 rounds, even round 4, I'd be in on him. I know I've had him in my top 50 for a while as far as super flex draft stuff goes, but like at the tail end of that.
Well, I've had him in the top 50 the whole time.
Yeah.
That's
so it's
not,
like it's not like I'm not overly. I thought he did really well. I think he helped himself a lot at the Combine and the Senior Bowl. I'm still not like sold on him, but I know some people that are, and I respect.
He's sitting
those
at
people that
39.
Are, so.
39 for me.
Yeah, I got him at RB18. I really like his receiving ability, and I think he can carve out a role in that aspect of it. He's not only someone that catches the ball out of the backfield, but they do line him up out wide. And so he does show the ability to be able to run routes, catch the ball, and things like that. He definitely was a winner this week because one of the concerns a lot of people had was the juice. I mean, he's a patient runner, kind of a plotter. You get a couple yards. He's not like a dynamic slasher like a Gibbs or anything like that. But to be able to see him run a little faster than people expected is good things.
I think he's like a David Montgomery ceiling. Not like the prospect that David Montgomery was, but like how Montgomery was with the Bears, like a volume type of 5 to 8 yard chunk type of player. If he gets a spot where he can get that type of role, maybe. But like you're talking, he's going to be worth it as a late round flyer, I think, in rookie drafts, just because there's some potential if he gets a decent landing spot. But like, I'm not racing to the podium to try and
I feel like
him.
most of the time these guys that kind of go later they end up being on your bench, and you just kind of got to wait and see if something were to happen. But likely, they're not going to have a very significant role, I think, on any offense. So that's just my thought. Like, he might look good in college, but there's a reason these guys aren't going in the first few rounds or first 2 rounds. That's just my take.
Wow, that's terrible. But thank you for telling us that, Patrick.
That's like actually that's a really sad stat. Like
I know that's why I didn't spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
In a 1 QB, where would you draft the quarterbacks? I feel like people don't talk about this much, honestly, because 1 QB is not popular really anymore.
Yeah, depends on the QB, right? I mean,
if you're talking Richardson, probably 12. If it's a 12 team, like at the end of the first. I played some 1 quarterback, and I took Burrow at 112 in the year that he came out and paid off. Yeah, at that point, it depends. Most of the you're throwing darts at 1 QB all year. By 112 or 110, you're throwing at like, we're going to be talking like Dwayne McBride, Sean Tucker. Like, you're going to be like pretty exacerbated as far as high end talent goes. So why not take the quarterback?
Yeah, I'd say just look at the board as far as the range. Like Jeremy gave a good range. Know the board. Obviously, if you're looking at the teams, and Tyler's got 2 quarterbacks, and Conan's got 2 quarterbacks, and they're picking 111, 112. I'm probably safe at the 201 spot. Obviously, somebody could trade up ahead of me, but just know your board. Do your homework and things like that. But you're probably going to early second round, right at the end of the first round, about the same time you're starting to talk about tight ends.
I will take my 5th quarterback in that league, though. So just watch out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, if you want it, who cares? Just keep taking quarterbacks.
I think I agree. I think probably like depending on the prospect, like I can see being at the end of the first and into the second. But obviously in a 1 QB league, the reason that they don't have as much value is because you can only start 1, and there's 32 total that are going to be starting, right, for 12 teams. So. Yeah. There's not too much benefit, but if you have someone like Burrow, obviously that you can draft and just plug in each week and know that you're going to get stud numbers, it can be worth it definitely latter part of the first and into the second. But I think in generally probably like second round is kind of my comfort area.
They don't carry a lot of trade value assets, the problem.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're picking them mostly for what they're going to do for you.
Yeah.
And there's no Joe Burrow in this class. So I don't know. Oh boy. Afternoon. 12-team Superflex trade 107 for Daniel Jones. No, we're not going to do that. I just can't do that. I know, but
I think if he lands his contract, I can see it. I would say I wouldn't mind getting Daniel Jones back with maybe some, capital as well, like a second or a third. I would consider that if I have no.
It just comes down to where do you have him against these quarterbacks, because you could have one of those top 4 quarterbacks like Young seems to be slipping, but draft capital is going to flip everything.
There's no way that Young's falling to 107.
Young's not slipping that much. He's still minus 200 to go number 1 overall.
Yeah.
Well,
so he's not
I'm
actually
just saying you get a situation where Richardson could be jumping up to people's 1, Stroud could be the 2, and Young could be the 3. If you got Bijan in there, you're looking at the 105 is where Young starts. There's leagues where
someone's going to fall. Yeah,
I think
fall in love with
not every league is the consensus league. There's going to be people on one side of it, one side of the other.
Yeah.
I think that 107 is still very much in question that one of those 4 quarterbacks will fall. So whoever you think kind of is your 4th out of the top 4, like basically stack them up against Daniel Jones. And do you feel comfortable with Will Levis? If it's Will Levis, that might slip to that spot, or whoever it is.
It's hard. How risky do you want to be?
Exactly, and that's what it comes down to. But it's
as not
long
hard.
As Daniel Jones
the answer
doesn't
to
have
this
his
question,
contract yet.
The answer to this question is easy. It's the 107 is worth more.
Yeah,
the easy question.
Yeah, the value to get Daniel Jones, it's not there. You're taking a loss on that, giving that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you're saying after a rebuild, it depends. Am I ready to win the league this year? Like, is that how good my rebuild was? And I just need a second quarterback? I'd think about it. But like, if I'm still rebuilding, I'm taking 1-7 and I'll take a wide receiver or something if they're there and continue that rebuild one more year and be ready to take it on next year.
I think you'll be able to get Jordan Addison at 107 now.
Oh, for sure. You'll have your choice at almost any wide receiver, I bet. I bet you.
Well, JSN will be gone, but.
Oh, yeah, JSN will probably be gone. But after that, you'll have your choice at any of them.
Let's go. I appreciate that. From Drew. Oh, okay. This is good. This is good. Actionable question. I like it. Rank these 5 in half PPR Superflex, assuming expected draft capital. Levis, JSN, Addison, Johnston, Gibbs. Well, it's a good question, honestly. JSN for me is first, then Gibbs. Those two. So here, okay, I'll help even elaborate on this a little more. For me, for now, forgetting quarterbacks for a second, Bijan is obviously 101. JSN and Gibbs have kind of carved out to me, they're now 2 and 3 clearly. JSN has the edge, but they're way ahead of everyone else. Addison's combine was, and Johnston didn't do anything. So, and is kind of been a little quiet lately. So they're kind of in the next group. So then it's just kind of where you put Levis against these players. For me, JSN and Gibbs are still far more talented and better prospects. So I would mix Levis in with the group of Addison and Johnston. And for now, I have him last. I don't really like Will Levis. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole fantasy community versus like those who are actually going to be drafting, right? The NFL teams. There's a lot of buzz that, you know, like you were saying, Levis had a good combine and he looked really good. So we'll see where he goes. I think depending on where he gets drafted, maybe your ranking might change on that, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he'd have to be drafted a lot higher than I would expect. I mean, that ranking is assuming that he's drafted in the top 10. So
Okay.
how higher would he have to be? Like how much? Because I think at this point he's going to be QB4 in the NFL draft.
So if you
Anthony
had
the real
Richardson
question-
has moved ahead of him for the NFL.
The real question is, can you trust a guy that is that afraid of milk?
God.
It's just like some red. No, but I mean, I think in a super flex format, I want to give a little bit more weight to that, and so I think I'd honestly have the same order of the rest of them, but with Levis right in the middle. So I'd go
Levis is
JSN.
bad though. He's bad.
But there's,
We made this mistake once.
But I feel like everyone, like scouts, makes this mistake every single year. Like they like someone that we don't think is good, and you know sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it seems like there's always some type of disconnect on a couple different guys. There's not that many guys where the entire NFL world tells us, okay, we like them, and we all as a fantasy playing community are like, okay, we also really like them. Like, it does seem like there's a disconnect, and with him, I think it's a lot bigger of a split where it seems like there's more people that, are more in tune with that whole process that for some reason or whatever like him, and even to the point where they're saying, oh, maybe the Colts trade up to 1 and pick Will Levis. It's like, it seems ridiculous to us.
It
seems ridiculous to us.
Yeah.
But it was.
I think people are talking about the Colts trading up to 1 and taking Anthony Richardson now. Like I think that's that's the hot take that people are saying. I think we're, for me, according to the odds, Bryce Young hasn't really moved as the quarterback 1, and I don't think that seems to have changed really for the NFL. I don't think they need to see much, but I actually think Will Levis, while his combine was fine, compared to the people he was competing with, C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, they had better combines than he did. So,
well, I mean,
Will
Richardson had a historical combine.
Sure, but that's the reality. I mean, there are quarterbacks who are going to be selected. You're competing with the other quarterbacks for a spot. And I think before the draft, people were talking about Levis being the third quarterback off the board, and Richardson was kind of up in the air. And now I don't think people are talking about that. Now I think the conversation is more, is Richardson fighting for those top spots? And Levis is like behind, even though his combine was fine.
I wish they would have grouped them a little better. Levis, like with Stetson Bennett and a couple of the other guys, and then all young Stroud and Richardson together. Matt Miller put out there. It looks like Levis is a dad throwing ball with a bunch of his kids. I mean, Levis definitely did stand out against guys like Stetson Bennett and Tanner McKee and those guys. For this one, I mean, it's still, JSN over Addison. Johnston for me would be the furthest to the bottom on this one. And a lot of this is positional need. Like as far as like, if we're just in a vacuum going with who are the guys, then Levis is the quarterback. So, he's going to be pushed up. You get JSN, Gibbs, Addison, then Johnston. But when it comes down to it, some of the team needs and things are going to have to come into play for you, Drew.
Yep.
I mean, I guess the real end of the day is I think that both Johnston and Levis are so wildly overrated that it's just a question of which one, goes to the landing spot I like better / keeps the draft capital that I want to see. But, those are two players that I think the NFL can make mistakes. They can make mistakes. And I think
they took Zach Wilson at 2.
And I think they've learned from that. I think they've learned from that to a degree. I think they've learned from that. I don't think they're going to make the same caliber of a mistake by taking Will Levis that high. I think they're going to get it more right this time and stick with Young and Stroud, who are the actual complete prospects.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually complete quarterbacks who are actually good in college.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even with Richardson, I mean, it's crazy how much the combine, obviously boosted his stock, but like as a complete package as a quarterback, I mean, you're kind of buying into his potential with his freak athleticism now. He wasn't very good on the field.
I think with Richardson, we knew he'd be athletic. But
but this athletic, I don't know if people.
This I don't think we knew. Yeah. That's why I don't think it's double counting it. Because I think we knew he'd be good. We knew he'd be athletic, but not. You can never assume that someone's going to be historic. I don't think it was fair to say that everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to have the best athletic combine for a quarterback ever." I don't think people were going to say that.
What people aren't talking about it enough is that the throwing drills look good. Like it's not that he's cleaned up everything. I know he's playing.
There was still some problems.
He's playing with no defensive line, playing against air, but his throws looked good. It wasn't CJ Stroud good, but it looked a lot better than what you saw.
Wasn't Zach Wilson good? Because he looked pretty good too at the combine. Right.
Well, no, Zach Wilson looked really good at the pro day when he rolled to the left and through to the right.
That was at the pro day.
Yeah, pro day. My bad.
I will say though, the other thing I liked about Anthony Richardson, and not really, I don't know about Will Levis, but stood out to me from Anthony Richardson was his reviews for his interview. Oh, yeah. The interview seemed to have gone well, whereas Zach Wilson always rubbed me the wrong way. And maybe I have to count this more because sometimes I just have like a feeling that something's not right or something is right with a player. I can give you some examples of players who either rubbed me the wrong way or didn't, or kind of very much seemed to be good. Terry McLaurin is one of the players who stood out as very, very good interview, very, very good person. I just kind of like feel like that player is going to succeed, even if the profile is just not there. And Anthony Richardson seems like he is in the right place.
He interviewed very well. He was very engaging, and he had everybody in the room was over at his podium, handled all the questions well. And then when he was done, he was going around, and of course, all the TV wanted to talk to him and everything. But he was really personable with everybody. He obviously was enjoying the moment, but I mean, he literally was like stopping and taking selfies with some people. But
I like that though.
As far as the interviews, he handled all the questions well. They talked about, and he said, listen, I haven't started a whole lot of games. You haven't seen the best of me. I'm working on every little thing. I'm building myself from the ground up. And, every time they threw him hey, what about your 55% completion percentage? Or what about this? He never blamed anybody else. He always owned everything on his own and just talked about how he's work on improving those things and how those things can be improved.
So that's a lot of the reason why I think that, NFL teams, I think, care about that more than we do. They care about the interview more because, we don't have to actually talk to these people when we put them on our fantasy team.
Well,
wait, you don't talk to your players?
No.
I'll say this: as far as being in the stadium, you're not really supposed to cheer after the 40 and do some of those things. All the GMs and decision makers are in the suites above, and they can hear the crowd going absolutely crazy for Anthony Richardson when he ran the 40. When he did that, the crowd was just so into it, and it was the most packed day of all the days. So every owner that heard that knows the tickets will be sold. And that will be a factor in there.
Absolutely.
Obviously, this is you think about the most recent draft classes with 5 quarterbacks, and this could be 5. We could see Hendon Hooker in the late first round or early second round. You have a very high chance that only 1 or 2 of those guys pans out. You look at the Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen class. You look at the Mitch Trubisky class, and you look at the Justin Fields class. I mean, I know a lot's still undetermined with that, but you go back to the Sam Darnold class, and there's only 1 or 2 guys that worked out of that group, and same with the Trubisky class.
I mean, there's no correlation between success among players in the class. I mean, it's just as we know that the hit rate is what it is, but it doesn't matter how many players are in
it's
the
not
class.
the class, but it's the position. It's the position.
Always.
You can
but this is the case
at
at quarterback, no matter how many quarterbacks are in the class. There's always it's not a very high hit rate, even among those who are drafted very highly. There are a lot of misses, a lot of busts. But it doesn't matter how many quarterbacks are in the class.
Did you see the
It's like flipping a coin 4 times. It doesn't matter if it was heads the first 3.
Did you see his numbers lined up next to Kyle Pitts' numbers in terms of the
no, I didn't actually. I didn't see that graphic.
It was funny because it's almost identical.
He's almost identical to Myles Garrett.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I'm saying. It's yes, we all knew he would be athletic, but this is special. This is something worth counting. This is something.
We didn't think
worth
he was going to break the combine. We knew he was going to be awesome, but
for me now, the Superflex situation has kind of developed into a top 6. Bijan is at 1, and then the next 5 are Young, Stroud, JSN, Gibbs, and Richardson, and it's just going to depend on where everyone goes. And we'll have to see.
Let me ask you guys something real quick. So with his freak athleticism, right? I mean, if he didn't work out as a full-time QB, could you see a team utilize him? I mean, obviously with the draft capital, you're going to invest in him. You're going to try to make him out to be the guy. But can you just imagine him in a Taysom Hill kind of role? No, you know what I mean.
Don't subject Anthony.
No,
Richardson
I'm just saying. I'm not saying they're in the
role.
same.
Come on.
I'm not saying they're the same talent level and all this kind of stuff. But if it didn't work out, he has the goods to consider moving around and trying out different positions, even just with his athleticism. I think so. Just putting it out there.
Nah, I don't think so. I'm not really thinking about that. I do think it's a way to get him on the field if he's not going to be the starter immediately. To get him a little bit of playing time, even if he's not ready to be the full starting quarterback week 1. So I do think that's an option. And the Ravens did it with Lamar Jackson in 2018. They did it with Lamar Jackson in 2018, and other teams have done it. So that is something that's an option. But I do think that the idea that Anthony Richardson has to sit for 2 years is a little bit ridiculous. If he has to sit for 2 years, then he's not worth a top 10 draft pick. So he either doesn't have to.
I think 1 year makes sense.
Not even
in terms, yeah, but
But if you just look at where he's gonna go, it's probably not going to be a team. The only situation I could really see him going to where he would be sitting behind a somewhat incumbent starter would be if he went to Seattle with a franchise tag Geno Smith. That I could see. And then
I think another name that's been floating around is sitting behind Jared Goff for most of the year. If the Lions were to go that route, I don't think that's that.
I don't think the Lions want to do that. The Lions have been pretty unequivocal in their support for Jared Goff. Whereas Seattle has been more we'd like to have Geno Smith back. We will have Geno Smith back. They haven't made the same kind of they haven't been talking if you listen to what Brad Holmes says about Jared Goff, it's not he's going to be here next year. It's talking in long-term plans. And yeah, he could be lying. It could be GM speak. I mean, there's always possibility of lying and all that and gamesmanship. I do think it's more likely that the Lions actually trade down from 6 to someone who would like to pick Anthony Richardson if he's still there. I think that is greatly in the Lions' plans, would really help them, get even more assets. I mean, the team started to come on at the end of last year. I think it would be a great move for them to do something like that. But I don't see the Lions being likely. I see Seattle being a lot more likely to go for a plan like that. Lions feel a little more committed to Jared Goff than I think Seattle is to Geno Smith, personally.
That's fair.
Sorry, I just imagined the Bears taking him and he sits behind Justin Fields.
I mean, Houston could take him. I mean, there's a possibility that the Colts trade up to number 1 and then they decide that Young is their guy. And then Houston we want Anthony Richardson at 2 instead of Stroud. I mean, that is possible. I don't think it's likely. I think Stroud also had an excellent combine, great throwing the ball. And I think that he solidified his case to be a top 2 pick as well. So, I don't see that as being likely, but anything is possible. But yeah, we'll have to see. This is about the Wan'Dale Robinson situation. So there's another thing about Anthony Richardson, and then there's some Jaguars news that we'll get to. Rewinding to the beginning to see if my Anthony Richardson question was answered or talked about. 2x speed, and y'all sound like you spent the pre-show splitting an 8-ball of Coke. I feel like that's only me.
I only do Diet Coke.
Me too. I feel like I'm the only one who talks super fast of the bunch here. I don't even talk that fast, but I can.
Should we try it?
I've listened to myself on 2x, and I think I sound pretty quick. It's hard for me to understand myself on 2x.
I like a nice 1.5.
I like that they now put in 1.75. That's kind of what I listen to is my ideal butter zone for listening to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Butter.
Yep. But we have talked about Anthony Richardson extensively. I think he's the biggest story of the combine. Right? I mean, of what captured the most mainstream news, I feel like he was talked about the most of everybody there. Even not fantasy relevant.
Bryce Young hit over 200 pounds, which was good. So.
That was good. And also not fantasy relevant, but Nolan Smith, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Defensive
that
end, right?
made a lot of. I mean, how did he run? I mean, how much did he weigh? How did he run? What did he run? 4.39?
Did they juke the stopwatches? Like, I feel like everyone was faster, like, for that.
No,
like,
not everyone. I mean, the wide receivers were not fast.
The D linemen
wide
were
receivers
on the
as a
D
whole.
line.
So maybe the stopwatches on the D lineman day were different from the ones on the wide receiver day. Because wide receivers were not fast.
The second group of wide receivers were pretty quick. It was just the top end wasn't that fast.
There were no Blazers, were there? I mean, there was no. Who was the fastest? It was like 4.3.
4.34.
4.34. That's not that good. Yeah, that's not even that good. So
well, I mean, we're desensitized to it now. We're like 4.34.
Yeah, but I want John Ross.
Well,
where did he go play? How did he do?
Nowhere. I just want to see it because it entertains me.
It's probably better Jalen Hyatt ran 4.4,
Yeah, we saw it.
It's probably better for his profile. Everybody who runs below that always flakes out. I don't know if.
Yeah, but
I'd be interested to see.
I don't think running faster is actually a bad thing.
You never know.
I think we know better than that. I think we know better than that. I think that the sample size of players who run faster than 4.4 is not that big. I think we know that running faster is better. But, just because it hasn't worked out, there's probably another factor in those players' profile that's actually the cause of that. Lack of production in college. That's actually the reason, not that they were fast.
Yeah, and when you guys are
correlation instead of causation.
When you guys are looking at the 40s, weight adjusted 40 times are interesting to look at. When you see these running backs that are 20, 30 pounds heavier.
Tyler Scott. No, don't draft him.
Oh yeah.
No, ran fast. Now this is an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
he's gonna show you that he ran fast, but he sucks. He sucks.
You can look
There's
last year and
him.
see like Pacheco, Ken Walker, Breece Hall, like those kind of guys. Like weight relative to the speed is extremely important in all of this.
Yeah, and bad players who run fast are still bad. That's the main thing I'm trying to tell you. Is if a
Yeah.
player was bad, just because they ran a 4.3 didn't make them good. You know, they were bad in college for a reason. You do get players like that who have athletic, good athletic testing, kind of come out and then do have an NFL career, but those are rare. Those are rare. I'm struggling to think of one off the top of my head, to be honest. It's usually the college production usually drives NFL production. We know that. Carr in 107 for Pittman in 202. Carr in, it's 10 team superflex. Take Carr in 107.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly close. I mean, Carr in a 10 team superflex, I think I'd lean Pittman over Carr in 10 team superflex, but the 107 is worth so much more than the 202.
Yeah, I feel like I'd give up Carr for Pittman in 202. Maybe toss in a late one, but I'm not giving Carr and 1-7.
Yeah, and
like losing on both ends of the value there in a 10-team superflex. I feel like.
Yeah, I'd rather have Carr. Also, I'd rather have Carr over 202, and I'd rather have 107 over Pittman. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're
that
like
way as
we've
well.
seen Pittman do enough where we consider him like a special player that you're kind of running out to get right now either. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to trade Pittman in 202 for Carr in 107. That sounds like a good deal.
That's what. Yeah, if I'm receiving Carr in the 107, I'll take that all day.
Absolutely. And then we got the next question. I don't know if it got revised, but there's two separate, very similar questions. So let's rattle them off. 10-team superflex. The offer they have is send Amon-Ra, receive CMC, and the 108.
Yes, I'm still in on CMC. I mean, obviously he's in San Fran now, and we saw what he could do. He could produce, continue to produce. So I'll take the CMC side here, especially if I'm win now. I kind of want to see what happens in Detroit with Jamison Williams coming back, and being able to maybe be integrated into the offense a lot more. What that'll do for ARSB and his targets. So yeah, I would personally take the CMC side here.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, I think
close.
The value's on that side.
But depends. If I'm win now, CMC 1.8 is really good value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so would that change? Does your answer change when it's Waddle instead of Amon-Ra? Same receiving offer of CMC and the 108, but I would assume Waddle is likely a couple spots, not too many spots, but just a few spots ahead in that Dynasty wide receiver ranking.
Yeah.
What do we think of that one?
Sticking with it. Give me CMC and the pick.
Yeah, like I honestly would almost rather have Amon-Ra than Waddle, to be honest.
Ooh.
I mean, they're like really close.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know. I just don't trust the Dolphins. That's all.
I mean, it's definitely something that, now that the season's been over, it's died down. But like a couple months ago, we were worried, like, if Tua takes another hit, is he ever playing again? And I mean, obviously those concerns are still there, even during the offseason, even if he's coming in fully healthy, like what he suffered this past season in such a short period of time. It's like you have to be concerned. And I'm definitely on that side of being just worried about how his future is going to be with all those concussions and just head and neck injuries and all that. So, but when he was healthy, Waddle and Hill were really good. So it's tough. And I want to believe in Waddle, the player, but I mean, I do think the offer, especially like you said, Jeremy, like if you're in any way a contending, like more contending team, then that CMC plus 108 looks real nice. I mean, we've obviously talked about some of the guys that will be available at that 107 or 110, 112, those spots, and the 108, like you're still likely getting someone like wide receiver or running back 2 through 4, whoever you kind of have in that range. So
Yeah,
I
it's
I
like
think
you're getting an elite back plus a chance to hit on like a young running back or wide receiver to
You could
replace
draft a
Waddle.
similar Waddle style
Yeah, exactly.
arc at
Mhm.
1A with like
Well,
a
there
Madison
is
or
no
Collins.
Waddle. There's not
I
going
don't
to be
think-
that at 1A.
I don't think
But-
Waddle's that good.
no, not
I think
not
Waddle's
quite
good,
like the sure
but
thing.
he's not. It's again.
He's very good.
It's relative to the offense. Miami hasn't had a running back. Miami gets a running back
He's
this
very
year.
good.
If they bring
He's very
Saquon,
good. I mean, I
you're
don't
not
know.
gonna-
He set
he's good.
he set the receptions record for rookie. I mean, how bad could he be?
I'm just saying, it's not like it's force fed targets. They didn't have anybody else. I mean, he's not bad. I'm not.
You still
saying
got to
that
get
he's-
him though. Targets are earned. Targets
Yeah,
are earned.
I
It doesn't
just-
matter. It doesn't
I'm
matter
just
who else is there. We
saying
know
that.
this. We know
I
this
don't-
though. We know
Yeah,
it. Like
but-
targets are earned. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's the excuse that's always used for. Well, this random player is going to produce this year because there's no one else there. It never happens. It never
Yeah,
happens
but-
because unless that player is actually good.
I
Jalen Waddle's
would-
actually
I
good
would
here in
al-
the targets.
Yeah, but I'd 100% rather have Jordan Addison and CMC than Waddle. Wouldn't even be close. It's not even close. Jordan Addison can easily beat Jalen Waddle, hands down.
I don't think you're going to get Jordan Addison.
Devontae Smith and Jalen and Jordan Addison are basically similar, and Devontae Smith
He has to do
basically
it, though.
outproduced Waddle. I know he has to do it, but you're taking that shot. You're getting CMC, who's better than Waddle as a fantasy asset, straight up.
Waddle's
What's-
worth more though in Dynasty,
long
a lot
term,
more.
but you're still trying
A
to
lot
win.
more.
You're still trying to win. I
Yeah,
want to win this
I
year,
mean,
you know? I
For
don't
me
want,
though, I'm never
I-
going to do this. I'm never going to do this. This is like to give up someone like Waddle, I need more,
Wow,
a lot more.
a
I
lot
just
more
don't
than
trade-
CMC
I don't-
in the one.
I just don't trade players like this. It's like asking
Wow.
me to trade, Lamb or AJ Brown. I just don't.
To
I
me,
just
Waddle's
don't do it.
success was purely due to Tua, and that tells me he's just not. You know what I mean? It's an offensive scheme.
Oh, I don't
Very
think
good at
so.
getting people's open. He
The, the
did. I
splits,
mean,
I
even
think
with
Waddle would be good in
Tua,
any scheme.
even with Tua, the splits were very concerning in the second half of the season last year. Hill was obviously the one. Waddle was great the first half of the season, but his end of the year is a lot better than what his week-to-week production was if you look at it.
You still have the production though. I mean, I think we've learned this lesson over the years that penalizing players for having an uneven distribution of production is a huge mistake. That usually is a bad idea. Like at the end of the day, we're talking about someone who in year 2 had 1,350 yards. Like these players don't fail. They don't fail. Players with that profile don't fail ever, really. When they're successful in year 1 and then continue to be successful in year 2 with that kind of draft capital, those players like this successful, those players don't fail. So I get it.
Are you on the? So this was another.
Well, I also like
same-
Amon-Ra a lot.
Are you on the player side of each one? Then you'd say.
Amon-Ra, I wish Amon-Ra were taken in the first round. Amon-Ra to me has slightly more risk than Waddle. I think Waddle's a better player. He was drafted earlier. But this one, it's just hard for me to do it though. I don't really want. I don't really want.
You want to hear
CMC
something
at all.
very coincidental and interesting? Is I actually made, or I'm about to accept a deal, getting Amon-Ra and Waddle in one of my leagues.
Oh, what do you get?
And so the price, so it's Amon-Ra, Waddle, and then a couple throw-ins, Will Disley and the 410. And I'm looking at trading the 108, the 109, a 25 second, and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Dude, you're ripping them off hard.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't understand that one.
I mean,
That's ridiculous.
we've been
value.
going back and forth.
Yeah. Well, you did a
And
good
I've had
job
to
of
add
getting to
in
a good place.
guys like
I love it.
Shakir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's why I thought it was funny. They're asking about Amon-Ra and Waddle, how to kind of value them, and
Yeah.
those
No,
are exactly the two guys I was targeting in one of my.
I would
my
say
leagues.
that if you want my advice, the best thing to do is target these players who are still young, who have produced a lot, and have everything in their favor. If you can get them, you can get. The other thing is, you can get in most leagues, you can get Amon-Ra for less than this. Like Amon-Ra doesn't cost this on the market. Waddle might, but Amon-Ra doesn't. Amon-Ra shouldn't cost this. You should be able to pay less because his market and trade analyzer type value is not this high. So I would say that maybe if this is what it's going to take to get Amon-Ra in this league, maybe this isn't the league you acquire Amon-Ra. Because you, like I said, you should be able to pay less. I've seen him go for a lot less, like less on the player and less on the pick than this offer.
Really? Like recently?
Oh, yeah. Recently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I think
Amon-Ra is someone who the value varies based on the league. A lot of people were frustrated with him. And because he's not a first round pick, the doubts creep in a lot faster.
Yeah. I think
for
as of
someone who
right
has
now,
the
the
draft capital.
valuation wise, Waddle and Amon-Ra are pretty close.
They are.
Yeah.
But I feel like you have more people willing. I mean, look at like a
about
trade
ARs.
about
Yeah, I agree.
the Jameson Williams thing, and then also just like the draft. I think it's just the draft capital. I think the perceived value for Amon-Ra more than Waddle is someone I would say is a buy. I don't even know if I want to call it buy low, but I would call him more of a buy than Waddle. Waddle is a little more expensive, I think, in most leagues. So I'd go for the cheaper option, who I also think is really good. But I don't think you should have to pay this either.
Yeah. I took the CMC side here in this question.
Like if I had the CMC side, let's say, I would. This is not what I would look to do. I would look to just trade CMC away.
I would just keep winning actually with CMC.
I'd look to trade CMC away, but there are better ways to extract value from CMC than this. So that's what I would say. But if I had Amon-Ra, it's not really what I'm looking to do either. Next question.
Here we go. And I totally agree. Now is the time to package Carr plus something to tier up at QB. I went Carr and the 206 for Kyler in Superflex.
I love
Easy.
Great move.
Kyler
Great
easily.
move. So, I mean, totally agreed with that.
I actually bought Carr last season for like 2 seconds in a league, and I was like,
I'm telling a lot of people to
I was
do
like,
that
nice,
actually, before he
very
signs.
nice. Yeah.
That's funny.
It all depends on the leagues, right?
A lot of
That's true.
a lot of people said that like, oh, Carr's career is over, like, he's not gonna like be good anymore. And I was like, no, he's still got many years left of his career. Like, buy Carr low, pay an early to mid second for him, and you'll just enjoy decent quarterback production for a few years at a good price, and he'll still only be 34.
Did you guys see
think-
when Mike Florio tweeted out he accidentally wrote David Carr, and then David
That was
Carr-
Mike Garofalo.
Oh, Mike Garofalo. Sorry, those are two
Mike
different
Florio has his own issues. There are many problems, but there are many.
people. Yeah, I'm not here to
But-
talk about anything like that. But
No,
I
I'll talk. Look, I don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it.
I thought it was funny because then David Carr quote tweeted and he was like, "Oh man,
I saw
like,
that.
I was excited."
It was so funny. I did 10 push-ups this morning to get ready. I did 10 push-ups.
Yeah, man.
That's funny. No, I mean, I think you're right, though, because it's, you look around at the state of quarterback and, some teams are really, really set. Other teams they're doing a lot of diligent work in the draft and stuff. But it's like at the end of the day, a lot of these teams would have killed for Derek Carr last year. Like, even at his age now.
The Saints being one of them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they would have
The
won
Saints
their
being
division
one of them.
likely.
What about the Jets? Forget the
Like,
Saints.
So,
The Saints had
yeah,
somewhat,
I mean,
something at some point.
and it just goes to say it's like he might be an asset that you're kind of like whatever, like scoffing at a little bit, but in the real NFL landscape, it's like he's a coveted quarterback that's going to be starting for, like you said, 2 years at least, and it's like that's definitely
There's
worth
value.
something. And but at the same time, if you can use kind of that and look, he just signed, you got a big deal, and package that with a 206 to get Kyler, I'm all for that too.
Yeah, Kyler's
Like,
a good
take
buy.
advantage.
Kyler's a good buy
Buy
low
low.
option right now.
Very much.
He just
so.
has to come low.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It has to be low.
Man, why do
can't
people
be-
like trashing Kyler so much though, man? Like every
Do you really
article,
want to know why?
Every article I read is like,
Do you want to know why? I mean, I can
people
tell you
think,
why.
wait.
Do you want to know why?
He
because
plays
he's
too much
unlikable.
COD.
Because he's unlikable. He's an unlikable person in almost every way.
I haven't met the guy.
Maybe if you
so
got to
I
know
can't
him,
say.
he'd be likable, but nothing about his perception is likable. People do not like him. He's not outwardly likable to the average fan or average person who just hears about him.
I like
He's not
him.
likable. So that's why people don't like
Yeah.
him, because they're sick and tired of
It's
him.
like,
I don't know. I don't know.
can't
what
they
he's
do a
done
better
for
job of like masking? Like we basically just found out that Russ has been like the worst, and I thought he was like a pretty likable guy and like was fine.
And notice
then all
how
of a sudden,
everyone has turned on
everything-
Russ.
Yeah, and then everything is
Now
now
that
like
they see
actually
it.
no,
For
he
that,
did
man.
this back in the day too with Seattle. Like he was like a real piece of work.
I
and
think
it's
Russ
like,
has the same
wow.
thing. You know, I think people don't like him anymore. You know,
I
once
feel
Yeah,
like-
anymore,
once you
but he was
become
able to
unli-
keep it together for 10 years. Like
Once
it's
you
like, why
become-
did Kyler couldn't do that for.
people are, it says something about things, but I think people are more willing to excuse, you know, actual problems. They're more willing to excuse actual problems than they are to just excuse diva behavior. They don't really, that really rubs your average like NFL fan or average fantasy player the wrong way. And I get it. These players are making $40-50 million a year. I get it. You know, I get why that can rub people the wrong way. I understand that. Like I understand that feeling. But I think that's why the vibe around Kyler is so negative, because I think people are just tired of hearing about it. I think people are just not interested in his. It just doesn't seem fun. You know, he doesn't seem fun.
I mean, I think to that, it makes sense because of it's like if there's something wrong with their play, it's like, okay, you could see, even if it's an injury, it's like, you know, like there's ways to kind of fix that. If it's something off the field or in his personality, it's like, it's kind of a mystery now. It's like,
but
you know,
this is why he's a buy, because there's nothing actually wrong.
No, exactly.
There's nothing
But it's
actually
like-
wrong. He's
Mhm.
just
But it's like
unlikable
extreme
to the
example.
dynasty
It's like
community and the fantasy
Antonio
community.
Brown is like, you don't
Antonio
know if
Brown
he's
was
gonna-
different. Antonio Brown had
No,
like real
I
problems.
get it.
These are
Extreme,
not real
extreme
problems.
example.
Like
But-
these are not real
but-
problems, but they're driving his value down, and those tend to be the things that I think when there's actually not a problem, but it's driving the value down. Those tend to be the
I just don't-
opportunities.
when have people seen this like terrible side of Kyler? I have not seen it.
It's
like-
not something you can see; it's something you have to read about. If you
Yeah,
read
see,
the
but that's
stories,
what I'm saying though. It's like media's portrayal of him. Like they're always.
but
wanting to crap
but
on
that's that becomes the reality. Like
Yeah,
that
but
becomes the
I'm just
reality
saying,
because
so-
you don't get an opportunity to talk to Kyler.
him. Sure,
You don't
that's
get an
what I'm saying, though.
opportunity.
So
You just
I
have to
don't
go
know.
based on what the media
I wouldn't
says.
go out and say he's not likable.
Well,
just
I
because-
would say your average fantasy football consumer might not have the most positive opinion of Kyler Murray based on the stories that have been, you know, published about him. And some of these stories are not hit pieces. Like, it's not like every story about Kyler Murray is like from the National Enquirer. You
Is
know,
that even
like
still around?
I have no idea if it's still around. But like at some point, you have to think that there's some truth to it. But with all that being said, none of that matters. It's driving his value down. So this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And if you can get this deal done, I would do it. Like, I'm not afraid of Kyler Murray, but I get it. I get why
Yes.
people don't like him. He's not
like
doing a
Kyler
good
Murray.
job of marketing himself to the
We
public.
got 2 out of 4 people here who like
He-
Kyler Murray.
He won me a
That's 50%
championship
of
2
the
years
people.
ago. Like, I like Kyler Murray.
Do you know how
I
many
do
times
think,
I've had to, like, I probably get this more than you do, any of you. Like, I have a lot of crazy Twitter followers. Do you know how many times I've had to deal with, like, Kyler Murray is a baby? Kyler Murray is this. Kyler Murray is that. Like, countless times I've had
I
to
do
hear
think
about it.
some
in
of
my
the
comments.
body language, I think people definitely have read into like kind of how he leads and how he portrays himself, even on like the sideline of games. I think that was a big fuss, you know, him and DeAndre Hopkins kind of fighting a little bit, and like just his overall body, like they just don't see the leader part of it.
See, but
and that's just something.
I feel like
All
such-
of this
it's
is
like,
to say that he's a
if
buy.
Tom
I know
Brady
that,
is
right?
if
Yeah.
Tom Brady is crying on the side at his teammates, like and throwing things, they're like, "Oh, what a leader showing his passion." And then Kyler's upset about, you know,
There comes a point where you get the benefit of the doubt, though.
and then it's
Where,
like,
where
oh,
you have enough
Kyler's a
success
baby,
that you get the
know?
benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
And Russell Wilson, if you notice, Russell Wilson got the benefit of the doubt. Then when he starts losing, then it's a problem. Then it's a problem. He got the benefit of the doubt until now. Now all of a sudden the Wolves are after him.
I mean,
He's
people are
losing.
always waiting to dump on people. I mean, and Russ is a prime example. Like people who tend to have like a cookie cutter image, everyone they don't like it. It's weird. Like I think there's people who like would rather like Deshaun Watson than Russell Wilson, and I'm like,
that's kind of what I was saying before.
like,
Is people are more willing
that
to
work,
look past
you know?
actual problems
Yeah.
over whatever is wrong with
That's a great example, actually, right there. Just like
It's like how does this, how does it all work?
But I mean, this
is why I don't try to. This is why I give up on the carefully curated image, because like I saw what it did for Russell Wilson.
I still like Russ. I'm just gonna put that out there. Russ, if you ever
definitely
watch
do not.
this, if you ever watch a stream, Russ, still love you, bro.
He's not watching. He's busy cleaning out his office that Sean Payton told him he had to get rid of.
You would need an agent to like watch and talk.
Yeah,
to us
he's gonna need an
we
agent
can
to
never
watch
talk
it
to
and then
him.
tell him about it.
No, we
can't have his phone number.
away.
All right, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for the coverage. I do like the ability to go on tangents. All right, thanks for the coverage. All right, so there's some Jaguars news. Evan Ingram officially franchised. Yeah, I mean, that was already reported. I did a video on Evan Ingram on the channel a little bit about like 3-4 days ago. And then, it's official today that he's franchise tagged, but I already had that in my rankings that he would be franchise tagged. And then Ridley officially reinstated again. I pretty much thought that was a foregone conclusion. I don't think the trade would have happened if it weren't. So I pretty much had already just assumed that was going to be the case, but he is officially reinstated, and that means that he will be there next year. I think I talked about that. I think I talked about that pretty extensively when it was announced that he was applying for reinstatement, because I just assumed that it would be successful.
Mm-hmm.
What are you selling Rachaad White for?
I'm holding.
Yeah, so am I. Rachaad White's not really sell to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you would want to sell him necessarily. I mean,
It's
I would.
one of the-
If you can get a first,
If you can get a first this year, maybe.
Yeah.
If you can get any
if a manager is
yeah.
looking into, like, obviously, Leonard Fournette is gone and they're really hyped up about Rachaad White being, a really great asset. And like you said, if you can sneak into that first, but even like 112 right now, like, would you rather?
I'd rather have the 112.
I'm gonna probably hold
this year, but it's still it's tough. But
Yeah.
I think we're all kind of on the same page of like it's like not specifically looking to sell necessarily.
I'm concerned that
I just don't think he's a workhorse. I think he's going to disappoint a lot of people this year. And honestly, I think the Bucs might draft somebody, and he's not even going to have a workhorse role. He's going to.
I think they have to.
They'll have an expanded role, but I mean, they're probably going to bring somebody in that's one of these later round, bigger bodied running backs. Is probably what they'll bring in.
Bring
They
Ronald
kinda pair him
Jones
with
back. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I mean, he definitely went on Twitter last week talking about how he just didn't have the opportunities like some of the other big guys, and that like just look at me when I have more opportunities and stuff like that. So
let's see.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, players, that's not even up to him, but we all already know players lie all the time about.
I've seen a mock draft or two with the Bucs selecting Bijan Robinson at 19, but that just makes no sense to me. It seems like
the Bucs have a lot of issues going for them.
If there's more traction for that, okay, fine, go sell Rachaad.
But I also, to be honest, Bijan had a good combine. I don't think he's going to be there at 19.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think so.
I do think.
I don't think so. I
half.
don't know where he's going to go, because a lot of the teams picking a little bit higher don't really need running back. So I don't know.
I think you might get one that trades back somebody.
I will say, if Tennessee trades Derrick Henry away, like was reported today, there was a lot of sudden discussion about that. And that is so in play at 11. Like beyond in play for Bijan Robinson.
And we know they know how to use a workhorse too.
I do think that possibility, and then Houston at 12 are kind of the ceiling. I think we're past the days of a running back going in the top 10. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But Houston at 12 is the one I have like, yes, they have Dameon Pierce. Yes, that's okay. Bijan Robinson is from, went to Texas. I think there you can link that way. It makes no sense, but when has Houston done things that made sense? Like that's, I wouldn't put it past them to do that. Not what I would do, but we'll see. Well, this is an easy question from Nick. I'm a league manager of both of my leagues. How do you guys do your rookie drafts to get trades on the clock done? We've always done a 2-minute clock, but I want to spice it up. Well, this is a very easy question.
Wow,
you just have slow draft.
Wow,
yeah, of course there are going to be no trades with a 2-minute clock. Yeah. That's faster than the NFL draft.
We do 24-hour clock in a lot of the leagues I'm in.
Yeah, I'm good with that. That's actually a little long for me. I would go for a 12-hour clock that pauses during night Eastern time, or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever time zone you're in, like the
whatever time zone.
10 to like 8
some sort of night
12
pause
with
12-hour clock with some sort of 8-hour or so night pause is good for me.
Yeah.
24, but honestly, 24 hours is fine. I think anything longer than 24 hours is about the maximum.
Yeah.
I think anything longer than a day per pick is too long. And 24 is a little long. I really think you're going to be awake during 24 hours. I think for me, that's a little long. I think the maximum I'd be willing to really have is like 18.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much just
you see a lot of
you got to get it done, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But a 2-minute clock, of course, you're going to have no trades. Of course, how are you going to have a trade?
I mean,
I've seen some groups try to do it where they're like, we'll pause the 2-minute clock when someone says, "Hey, I have an offer."
I don't like that.
And then everyone's waiting around.
So, yeah.
It's like that's
obviously they are the LM.
Well,
yeah.
If you're going to do a live draft, let's say you want to do a live draft where everyone gets together. It's still a 2-minute clock is too fast. You're not going to have trades with a 2-minute clock. You would have to do something like the NFL, where maybe the first round a 15-minute clock, and then the second round a 10-minute clock, and then a 5-minute clock for everything after. And you could probably get all that done in like 4 hours.
Also, is he trying to say he's the commish?
Yeah, LM is league manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yes.
I've never heard anyone call it the league manager.
It's an ESPN term. They call it LM.
Yeah.
Okay.
How high will A-Rich have to be selected, and how far does Bijan need to drop for Richardson to be the 101 in Superflex? That's not possible for me. I will not do that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be league.
They lay out a potential scenario.
The value difference too big. The value difference is too big for me.
Bijan's too secure of a prospect.
Bijan is not going to drop. I mean, this is not realistic. Like the first part of this is not totally unrealistic. But for me, I said it 3 weeks ago, and I'll repeat it again. If Anthony Richardson is quarterback 1 in the NFL draft, I'm fine making him quarterback 1 in Dynasty. If someone trades up to 1 to pick Anthony Richardson, then I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter what I think anymore. But what I think is not relevant. Someone traded up to go to number 1 to pick him. He'd be my QB1 because he has the most fantasy upside. So I'm fine with that.
So Trubisky would have been your QB1 back in the, that draft.
I mean, that's a long time ago, but just because it was wrong doesn't mean, it wouldn't be.
And I think that's a different scenario. I mean, we're talking like a freak athlete who's already guaranteed to give you that easy rushing upside as a fantasy asset. But if someone takes him at 1 or 2, like they're saying, okay, we can convert him as a passer. It's the Trey Lance effect. It's the Zach Wilson didn't get driven up there, but if they think they can do it and they're taking him that high, I would at least feel comfortable taking him because I already know he's going to give me that safe rushing floor.
Okay, sadly though, the 2 prospects you just named are terrible.
Right, but the thing is that
we really don't know with Lance yet. He just hasn't had his chance. I mean, you really don't know. Yeah. He could come into camp and they could say.
I think I saw enough from Trey Lance to say that he's not excellent. He's not what
I never loved Trey Lance. I'm not out here to
what I
vouch
mean
for him.
is
I'm just saying that that's the same. It's a more accurate quarterback that has a really good athletic profile. Yeah. So it's
Trey Lance is not as good as his prospect profile. I think I've seen enough to say that.
Anthony Richardson is a step ahead of Trey Lance as a whole profile goes. Like, even as a passer, Richardson's a better passer than Lance was, and did it at a bigger stage. But I'm just saying, like, that whole presence.
Richardson
of,
has better.
I'm not pushing like Trubisky up there because like he didn't have that high end rushing floor. Yeah, he was mobile, but like, Richardson has a high end Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Josh Allen rushing upside that, like, if he's taken high, I'm fine with moving him ahead of Stroud and Young, possibly, if that's your forte. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with that. It makes more sense just because he's a little bit more polished than the other guys. Like, than a Trubisky who's more like was just, he was taking one because the team thinks he's the better quarterback, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I bring that up to like feel pain.
But yes,
as a Bears fan,
even if all that happens, I feel like just looking at my rankings, I would still have Bijan Robinson ahead.
Oh yeah, Bijan's still one for me. Yeah, I'm not pushing him at one. I'm just saying,
good with
as
that.
the first quarterback, I could see taking Richardson if he gets drafted ahead of the other guys. Is where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, taking Bijan Robinson is like the equivalent, or as close to the equivalent of taking, Saquon Barkley 5 years ago and not having the injuries yet.
Yeah.
And if you were given Saquon Barkley's rookie season, where he finished RB1, then there were injuries, and that can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
But given how that had worked out,
guy that people talk about, LaDainian Tomlinson and Saquon and those kinds of players in the same breath as comps. Like, you take that guy. Like,
but I'm fine.
He doesn't slide.
I am fine with Anthony Richardson at 2. If he is, if he's the first quarterback taken, I'm fine with him at 2. I think some people are going to put him at 2 anyway. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. If Bryce Young still goes 1, I'm probably still going to have him ahead. So, and that might be a difference between me and other people. So we'll have to see exactly what happens. But, Anthony Richardson for me has solidified his status as a top 6 pick.
Oh yeah.
And, now it's just deciding based on exactly where he goes, where he falls in that range. But he's going to be a premium pick for sure.
All right, Tyler, I got to get out of here. I just want to say goodbye. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
It's been legit.
Peace.
Take care, guys.
Later, Jeremy.
Thanks for coming.
Have a good one.
Whoa.
Okay, we're not gonna do that.
There we go. Hey.
All right, I can fix that. So yeah. There we go.
Let me run. Keep running through.
Yeah, we'll just go to the bottom and then close it out.
Yeah, well, speaking of guys that were fast and don't really pan out, Tutu Atwell was indeed fast. FFLFD says ARSB greater than Waddle. I mean, as saying Waddle, I think. I mean, they're very much close in Dynasty rankings. Yeah. I think
I'll
another
go
comment down here was KTC has them back to back wide receiver 6 and 7. So,
yeah, for me, like I have them at, what do I have? I have Waddle at 4 and Amon-Ra at 6. So very, very similar. I just have noticed, I would say they both are valued highly by a lot of people. But if one comes at a big discount, it tends to be Amon-Ra, not Waddle.
No.
I'm talking about the outliers, the outlier deals. They're there for Amon-Ra, not Waddle. And it's the draft capital. It's always the draft capital. And that's, I will say, players who have a lot of success but don't have the draft capital are often undervalued like 2-3 years into the career when the draft capital doesn't matter as much. Those players often are undervalued because that always carries a stigma against them. It's why Dak Prescott was undervalued for years in Superflex. Years undervalued because of that draft capital. And he was always a buy.
It is pretty wild, though, Amon-Ra, even without the draft capital, like just the production that he's been able to have. And, a lot of questions in that first season when he just kind of popped up. And then he was able to still produce, over the course of a full season.
That fast, man. I don't know how he pulled that off. But it was a coup for anyone who drafted him.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah, I will say he was definitely a miss for me in the rookie process. Definitely was not a player I was in on. And I definitely got burned there.
And I mean, I think you said like truthfully, which is that targets are still earned, even if, there's no great weapons, whatever. But we know obviously from the end of Amon-Ra's rookie season that yes, he still earned them, but there was really, their weapons were depleted and he was working. He was their one and
Yeah,
two
well, then
and
he put up
three
a
and,
season
and
in year 2 where he
exactly.
had 146 targets. So I think
But then, and so I do think
Yeah.
that was like last off season. I do think it's like a lot of people were playing that, oh, there was no one else kind of card more. But now we've seen it for another year, and
I think it's time to retire that game. Like, stop with the there wasn't anybody else. There wasn't anybody else doesn't matter. If you had the players I would be a little more careful of are the ones who did it with touchdowns. That can be random. That can kind of just happen. If that's all someone has, then I get it. You could say there weren't as many other players. The touchdowns were more likely to come and that could be fixed because those are a little more random, a little less sticky. But if a player has large numbers of yards or receptions, then I would be pretty in on them. Targets, I like seeing them actually do something with the targets a little more. I like to see a large target share, but what I'm more interested in a large absolute value of receptions or yards because that means they executed on the targets. So not just getting the targets, but executing. I don't care if it's receptions or yards. Both are sticky. A lot of people think receptions are more important. And they do kind of score more, but yards are very sticky too. Yards are very sticky year over year. It's just touchdowns are not. So just be careful of that. But you want to have guys who do well in one of those two areas. In addition, of course, to targets. We always want that as well. But I like to see yards or receptions with targets. Richard Davis says 103 for Andrews and Rashad White. Interesting. We talked about White earlier. Tight end premium, half PPR, Superflex, 10-team league. Oh, it's an interesting question for me at this point.
103.
I think I'd lean toward Andrews with tight end premium. It's a 10-team Superflex, so getting that quarterback is not going to be as critical. It's not the highest premium. I'd like it to be a little bit more, but I think I'd lean toward Andrews. Lean that way. But it's straight up, I think it would be almost dead even. But with White, I'll go for Andrews.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on my needs. Right? I mean, if I need a QB, that 1.03 could be really nice.
Easier to get in a 10-team Superflex, though. In a 10-team Superflex, there's excess QBs to go around. I'm not as just like doing this just to get a quarterback. There's other ways to get one in the 10-team.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah.
I just think that the half PPR premium just isn't that big for me. I mean, I know Andrews is like top 3 Dynasty still in tight end, but yeah, I don't know if that's enough for me.
I'm fine with it. To be honest, though, with the hype around the 103, I think you can get more for the 103 than this.
Yeah, maybe.
Especially now.
That kind of seems.
12-team Superflex, tight end premium, best ball startup. What's the early? What's the earliest you take the top 3 quarterbacks, running backs, and JSN in the startup? Well, let's see. I mean, Bijan, I would take near the back of the first. The quarterbacks, I think I would take them at this point with Anthony Richardson second, right? Rising in value. There is I mean, we'll have to see where he goes. But I think I would have both Young and Stroud between Dak and Tua. And then Richardson, if he gets any sort of decent capital, could be in there as well. Yeah, the top picks gain some value. I don't know. Maybe Richardson needs to even be higher. I don't know. I'm starting to think that he should just be 4 overall in the Superflex.
I think he's
I'm
certainly
starting to
gaining a lot of
think about it that way. Just looking at how I have my Superflex ranked. But the difference between at this point in Superflex, I would say the top 6 has really solidified itself as being really good. And then after that, there's a lot of question marks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably, when I do my pick value chart, I'm probably going to move some of those. The 102 was already valued very highly.
Yep.
But I'm probably going to move 3, 4, 5, and 6 up a bit. Because getting that third high-end quarterback of value in there is a big, big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we and probably Richardson, I think, will be competing with Tua to see, and then he'll be ahead of guys like everyone else, like Pickett, Kirk, Russell Wilson, Carr, Goff.
Right.
He'll be ahead of all those guys.
Yeah, even just on potential. I mean,
yeah, he has more potential and value upside than any of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to take Pickett over him. Pickett is going to have been drafted lower and Pickett is not that low. It's pretty high in my rankings, but yeah, there's like a gulf in Superflex. You have like the top, you have Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, Lawrence, Fields, Lamar. That's a good group at the top. Then you kind of have Kyler, Watson, and Dak. They have some questions, but we're somewhat confident in them. Then there's a pretty big drop to Tua, and then there's like a chasm to everyone else, to me. And yeah, we're going to wrap this show up when we get to the bottom. Hats up to the name to Recovered Ridley Truther. I love it. I love it. You were in the chat, Ridley Truther, when the news about Ridley being suspended originally dropped. I remember that show. I don't want to say I took a lot of heat. I think I gave myself a lot of heat for like my initial reaction. But that's before I learned to like be a lot less hard on myself. But I don't think either of you were there for that show. That was a long time ago. 2-minute clock. Might as well do a keeper league. Yeah, I think we basically said that earlier. We don't like the 2-minute clock. And then we'll finish off with this one here. One out of two. The 103 trade. So the 103 trade there. You have Hurts and Lawrence. So you don't really need a quarterback. So if you don't,
and they have the 102 and 106,
and you have the 102. Oh, well then, I mean, if you're getting Andrews, it's going to be difficult. Well, you already have Pitts. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It really didn't change much in terms of my perspective on the trade, but I think I'm still going to lean with my original answer that the Andrews side is worth a little bit more.
Would you rather make that though for not Mark Andrews, knowing all the picks they have, knowing they have Pitts, and then knowing that the running back position is like really where they
get someone way more valuable? Like
I think you can
put it
shop
together to get like a top wide receiver or something.
Yeah, because rather than
No, I mean like packaging like the pick with something else that like improve, be more elite at a certain position. That's probably what I'd go for.
Yeah. All right. Well, just want to do a couple of things before we close out the show. So FF Lefty, love the show. I appreciate that. Richard has been battling through it on that trade, and that's cool. And I want to thank Caleb again for this super chat. If you like what we're doing here, the super chat is a good way to support the show. If you want to support me directly, the Patreon or my Venmo like offer thing that I do are the best ways to support me directly. That's a link to the Patreon, and I'll put a link to the Venmo thing that I do as well. There it is. So you can click on that and purchase my spreadsheet. You guys have anything you want to plug?
Just find me on Twitter in the mean Twitter streets, tweeting dad jokes and fantasy football advice and takes. But make sure you subscribe to Tyler's YouTube page.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
If you're on there, like and subscribe.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And yeah, if you're here, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment. The end screen will give you a link to subscribe, and also should also give you a link to the previous video, the one before this one, or whatever my most recent video is. I don't know if it changes over time or not. So once again, I thank everyone for being here and for tuning into the show. And we'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Rocky from Trade Addicts is going to be on. We're going to discuss more things about the Combine. And we're also going to talk about a little bit of Superflex strategy, although, the Combine might eat up the whole show. We'll see. We'll see what questions come in the chat. But we will talk a little bit about Superflex strategy, potentially in context of the quarterbacks in the Combine. So look out for that tomorrow. And then next week, we will have our free agency coverage. Players can
Excited.
sign free agent deals during the tampering window as of next Monday. So we'll be live right to start it off, and then another show on Tuesday to kind of continue the conversation about that. But once again, I appreciate everyone for watching. I love the audience. I love all of you. Thanks to the co-hosts. And I will see you all soon.
See you
Peace.
guys.